questions, we'll talk about that. So how do we improve encoding? Now, how do we improve the way by which we process information? One way is to relate new information to information we already know. So we form associations for later retrieval. This could be something like a semantic map. Let me try to draw a picture of a semantic map. So if I asked you what a dog is, I'm going to write dog in the middle. Maybe I have some characteristics of a dog. A tail, barking. What else do I think about? Oh, maybe memes. Think of dog memes, right? Well, I'm connecting these different concepts to other concepts. I'm mapping different ideas. This is helping me building on information I already know. What do I think about when I think memes? I think funny. I think pictures. And I'll show you what I'm drawing to kind of illustrate. I hope you can see on my camera. So this is a semantic map where I'm connecting concepts. So you see here we have the idea of a dog. Maybe I want to learn what a dog is. Well, I have ideas. Dogs have tails. Dogs bark. And there are dog memes. Well, what's a meme? I'm going to keep connecting these concepts. A meme's funny. It has pictures, maybe text. These maps are all encompassing and they're expansive. This could continue. If I did this map, I don't think I would ever find an end to it, to be honest. And that's one way we can build on new information with information we already know. So we know all those components of what a dog is, so we're just relating those components to other components. We're just expanding. Again, we want to form associations for later retrieval. Use those cues as clues. Now, we can also imagine events or images like our not mental math, but our memory athlete. So we can relate images that help us recall certain events or certain ideas. So the example I have here is really silly, but I play ice hockey, and there's a team that we used to play against that called themselves the Danger Zone, which if you've ever seen the movie Top Gun, that is one of the songs the main people do their little mission to, right? It's a very popular song. Well, I remember this one hockey team. Out of all the hundreds of teams we played against, I remembered this team the most. Why? Because of the imagery they strike and the way they used all of this sensory information to have us remember their team. Not only did they base their team off of the movie Top Gun, they gave every player on the back of their jerseys a nickname of the person from a film. So in the film, all the pilots have different nicknames, and they gave everyone on the team one of those nicknames. They also used the song Danger Zone as their entrance song when they came in to the ice rink, which was very powerful, using that auditory stimuli and that music to help us remember them. And then they also had a lot of imagery on their uniforms with, it was black with white airplanes flying out and said Danger Zone, right? So they used all these different stimuli to help us imagine those events. And it helped me remember their team so distinctly even 5 years later, because I can imagine them, and they've engaged all these different senses to help elaborate and develop this meaning in something so silly as remembering a random hockey team that I played against 5 years ago. Now the secret to this, like I said, engaging the senses, elaborating on the material, referencing old information and trying to learn new, but also forming distinctive memories, ones that stand out. Find a way to make things distinctive. For example, with self-reference effect. The reason that I have the extra credit movie assignment is because I want you to reference yourselves and your interests in seeing how psychological concepts play out in your favorite movies. So, it'll hopefully solidify some of these concepts that you're going to write about because they mean more in relation to one of your favorite films. That's an example of self-reference effect. Or if you are a really big fan of, I don't know, some show, Breaking Bad, maybe using Breaking Bad as a reference later in one of your examples would help you remember that material better. That's self-reference effect. Maybe linking that material to how it occurs to you. I know some people with classical conditioning, when I asked you all on your discussion board to relay something like a behavior you want to change, I'm hoping that referencing yourselves will help you remember those operant principles and how you can change a certain behavior in yourself. Now, storage. Storing memories is just, how well can we put it away so we can retrieve it later? Well, memory traces or engrams is what we're going to talk about first. This is synonymous. These are literal traces of a memory on your brain. These are biochemical alterations or changes to your nerve tissue. This is like your brain writing a post-it note on itself. It's pretty amazing. So there is a physical change in the nervous system that represents our past experiences. If any of you have watched Futurama, there's an episode where Layla, one of the main characters, gets her brain altered, and they go in and view the map of her memories, and they can find where each memory is located, and she has them kind of fry and snip the different memories she wants to forget. Now, obviously this is a very sci-fi thought. We can't pinpoint where each memories lie because it would be impossible. They're not perfect packets of information. It's just interesting to note how our brain will biologically change itself with experience. But again, it's not a perfect package of information. We could just zap away if we want to forget it. Although, wouldn't that be great if you had a really embarrassing moment? I'm just saying. But consolidation, again, is going to refer to those neural changes that occur after learning to create a memory trace of an experience. When we remember events, we construct them using memory traces and our current beliefs. Now, what I mean by that is remembering is constructive and not productive. When we discuss memories, we are not a video camera. We cannot remember everything that's happened to us. We are trying to construct it based on emotions we felt, environmental cues we saw, all these different factors that are coming in. And sometimes we put our beliefs now onto our memories and mindsets of back then. So think of your memory when you're trying to recall events. Think of your memory as a filter. When you take a picture with Snapchat filter, or maybe an Instagram filter, whatever it is, those different filters are going to change how we see an image or a memory. Have you ever heard the phrase, you're looking at it through rose-colored glasses? That means you see things really happy-go-lucky, all beautiful, wonderful all the time. That's kind of something we can look at with memories, because sometimes maybe something horrible happened to someone. They may forget it, or they may recall it as not being as bad as they remembered it in that time. They may think, oh yeah, it was embarrassing and horrible. Like maybe they were. Maybe they wet their pants when they were in grade school, like 11, which is generally too old to wet your pants in grade school. So maybe it's something really embarrassing. But they may say, oh, it didn't bother me at all. I was fine. They're reflecting those values that they have now on what happened then, because in that moment, I'm sure that it was quite embarrassing to wet your pants at 11 years old. This is any back in my day story, pretty much. So when people talk about, oh, kids these days are so involved with their ABC, right? These older generations, now everyone does this, but I'm just picking on the older generations for now. These older generations put their mindset of how they believe, what their beliefs are concerning technology use and interaction now, and they believe that they were always this way. So that would be like me saying, oh, well, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I never did this. I was the best behaved person. What's another example I'm trying to give? Oh, I was always this happy-go-lucky, open-minded person, right? Which I am now, but at the time, I was not. It took a lot of education to get me where I am today. A lot of eye-opening experiences. But at that time, I thought I did know everything. And because of self-reflection, I'm able to maybe not misconstrue that memory as much, because I was kind of a ridiculous child, to be perfectly honest. But I'm getting away from the point, and I apologize. Just know that our memories, when we try to retrieve them, we're trying to put back together the pieces. If you get into an argument with someone and you're like, you said this, I remember you said this, and I said this, and then you said this, very accusatory, well, you're both trying to reconstruct a memory when you're in an argument. And you're both going to see this same situation from different perspectives, so it's going to be biased. That's a good example. Remember that one. Now, time. Time is going to have a lot of involvement in learning and testing. So, the retention interval, because with longer spans of time between learning and testing, there's all these things that can kind of come in and affect how you learn. So a retention interval is the time between learning and testing the retention of information. So remember, interval just refers to any amount of time. Experiences can undermine our memory. For example, retroactive interference. Retroactive interference is when newer information interferes with the retention of old. Think retro. Retro meaning old. That's what's being interfered with. For an example, we're going to talk about misinformation effect on the next slide, so maybe I might just delete that. But new information interfering with the old. If you learned psychology on Sunday and you decided to watch your lecture at the beginning of the week, but then you had sociology on Tuesday, and all of a sudden you took your sociology class and you were like, why can't I remember my psychology information from Sunday? That is going to be because that new information is interfering with the old. And then there's the opposite, proactive interference, when new information is interfered with by old information. So those past memories are going to interfere with the encoding of new. For example, have you ever had a PIN number or a password on some device or card? Well, let's say you use that PIN number or password for everything for the longest time, and then you changed it. All of a sudden, you forget the password and the PIN number because you keep typing in the old one. That's an example of proactive interference. That old password is interfering with your remembering of the new one. Another example is when you learn a new language. The syntax and grammar rules of English are going to be more salient. And so, say you're trying to learn Spanish, where nouns precede adjectives. Well, in English, adjectives precede nouns. So, it might be weird trying to flip them over and we try to use English grammar rules in Spanish. That's an example of our past memories interfering with the encoding of new information. So what I'm going to need from you on this next slide is I want you to grab a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, because we're going to try an activity. I'll give you a second to get that. For this activity, I want you to listen carefully as I read a list of words. Do not write them down, and don't look at the screen because I will have to read them off of the screen. So try not to look at the screen while I'm reading them, so we can just illustrate the point of this next memory and time issue. Well, after I finish reading this list, remember, don't write those words down as I read them. When I finish reading the list of words, take 1 minute to write down as many of the words as you can remember. Cool? Then, I will ask you some questions based on the word list. So listen as I read you a list of words. Do not write them down as I'm reading. Then, take a minute, pause the video, and write down whatever words you can remember. After 1 minute, I will ask you some questions. So, right now, don't look at the screen. I'm trying to have more activities for my online class. Okay, so don't look at the screen now. Bed, rest, awake, tired, dream, wake, snooze, blanket, doze, slumber, snore, nap, peace, yawn, drowsy. Write down as many of those words as you can remember. I would pause the video here because I'm about to tell you the answer. Okay. Now, hopefully, you will have remembered what words did we have? So, look at your list. Did you have the word bed? If your answer is yes, good. You're showing primacy effect. Did you have the word drowsy? If so, good. That's showing the recency effect. Did you have the word sleep? If you did, sleep was not on our original list of words. Here's the word list right here. Now, what I'm doing with this word list is we remember the words bed and drowsy because we often remember things based on their position in an order. So we remember things that happen in the beginning of learning and at the end. But often the middle just turns into a blah, 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 right? It's just a cluster of stuff we don't remember. But then we also made up a memory. We inserted the word sleep. If you didn't, good for you. I probably would have done it. But if you inserted the word sleep, that has us confabulating. We make up memory error gaps with things that make sense. So distorted information or information that makes sense. Because with this list, they're all words related to sleep, but I never actually said sleep. So we may have thought, well, sleep would make sense to be on this list. And you could swear, no, that word was in there. I saw it. I heard it. Well, it's not there. Look. And you could replay the recording. I never said it. That's confabulation. We do that a lot, especially with trying to recall our memories. But primacy recency effect is just serial position effect, where the learning instance occurs on a list is going to be how salient it is for remembering. For example, I tried to use this example or this theory when applying for this job. I knew that they were going to select a participant on Friday, and I thought, okay, I have to be either the first person or the last person to be interviewed to stand out. Now, who knows if it worked like that? I mean, I do have the job, so I think that's a bonus, but I chose Thursday to have the latest possible interview, and I got it. So, who knows if this experiment really worked, but I thought it did. It's just something I was thinking about, and you can use it in your head. Sometimes if you really want to stand out in your class and you have a bunch of presentations to do, present yours first. You'll be more remembered than someone who went in the middle. Or if you want to not be remembered, you might want to go towards the middle. Now, that doesn't always work, but just a suggestion.